be exactly what you want to be without all of the fear around you. We have to stand up together. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Chairman Project with Jason Sisneros, where we talk about business. I'm starting to get a lot of feedback from people telling me that the show is helping them. Even if you don't own a business, you're trying to make more money, and you work at a company, or you're just starting up, or you're thinking about starting a business. I'm starting to get a lot of feedback that people are gathering a lot of really great information as we roll. And I'm getting more and more excited. I want to tell you at the beginning, and then I'm going to come back to it at the end. But go ahead and if you want my show notes, I put in an incredible amount of research into these shows week to week, and so I do a thing called an infographic so that I know to follow the path. The research that I do, you'll understand. If you've been here more than one time, you know the level and depth of information that you get about business and how to become a chairman in your own life. The concept of chairman, chairperson, chairwoman is simply this, is that you have developed the ability to be able to exit your business. And that doesn't always mean sell, but it means that you get your time back. And that's what this show is centered on, is for you to understand what your end game is, that everybody that I've ever run into in my years of consulting, in my years of owning my own businesses, that whether we can articulate it or not, the end game is for us to be able to have money and to be able to have our time available to us. And so that's what the Chairman Project podcast is centered on. And what we talk about, and the principles and the strategies and the things that we can take and from this podcast, this free information, and be able to apply it to your life. So what I've done now with my team, with my incredible team, is we've got a book that's going to be published and a whole platform that we're building out around the idea of being built to exit. Okay. So from now on, if you go to built to exit, BUILT T0 or TOEXIT.biz, built to exit.biz, and you put in your email address, what you're going to get is a copy of my show notes. So I know that you know, there's a lot of people that try to take notes as we're doing the show because there's a lot of information coming at you very quickly. But if you go to built to exit.biz, you're going to be able to put in your email address, and you'll get a copy within, 2 or 3 days after the show. You'll get a copy of the show notes. And so you'll be able to refer back to them. You'll be able to apply them in your own business. You'll be able to see exactly what I put together to be able to do these shows. And trust me, there is an incredible amount of research that goes in week to week, and it will be super valuable for you in your own life. So again, that is built to exit.biz. Put in your email address and you'll get my show notes. And eventually, obviously you can go to YouTube and Spotify and all the other places to see my beautiful face. This is an audio. We do this on X every weekend. Thank you, Elon Musk, for being able to give us a platform for us to be able to get our information out, for us to be able to gather our crew and our tribe together to be able to do this thing, right? The Chairman Project is for you to look at your own life. This is not me talking at you. This is for you, specifically the listener, for you to be able to understand that the end game articulated for you with your business is for you to be able to exit your business, either by sale, right? Because it's built properly, or for you to be able to get your time back. And you can work in the business. There's a lot of people that love what they do. And what are you going to do with your time? I tried to retire a couple times, and here I am, working more than I ever have in my life, not because I have to, but because I have determined that I love it. Right. And this is the show that we do each and every week for free, for people to be able to enhance their own freedom, for you to be part of what I think gets missed in the general conversation around freedom, You've got freedom of speech. You've got freedom of, the Second Amendment, the First Amendment. You've got our Constitution. You got a lot of things where people talk about freedom. But without economic freedom, what do you have? Right? What choices do you have if you do not build a machine that creates cash to be able to build your necessities first and then all the way up to your freedom and to the things that you really want to create with your own life? And so that's what this show is centered around, is those strategies, those tactics, those conversations to give you better tools, better perspective on your own outcome of developing your own outcome. So we're going to go ahead and get rolling here on this week. I put up here SAMK as your business secret. Okay, as your business secret. What is SAMK? It's very interesting. Those of you that have followed me for a while, you know and understand. Those of you that are new, welcome. Glad to have you here. But those of you that have followed me for a little while, you know that one of the things that I do with my freedom is I free other people. I free children with an organization called CERT Ministries. It's Search, Evangelize, Rescue, and Train. Okay. And what we do is we go into, dark places and we rescue kids that are being trafficked in the sex trade. And I'm an operator on that team. Pastor Rudy Gonzalez is the one that heads it up and started it 20 plus years ago. And that's what I do with my freedom, and, part of it. And so looking at that, the part of CERT that with the T is called train. And so we train on missions that we've done in the past, missions that we may come up against. We train so that we are prepared. That is why you come to the Chairman Project every single week. You train so that you can be prepared in your own life, in your own business, to be able to help yourself and to be able to help your family, and then to be able to help your community and your country, however large you decide to build this machine that creates cash. Okay. And so this last training that we did, I learned a new strategy. And those of you that are in the military and in law enforcement, you know this strategy. And it is SAMK: suppress, assess, move, and kill. And so what I got to thinking about was, what a great strategy, because what happens if you don't have a system or a way to think or a way to react when you are under attack? Right. And if those of you that run and own businesses, or if you're thinking about running a business or starting one, you will understand one concept very, very well, very, very quickly. And that is that you are always under attack. You're always under attack. There's always something coming at you. Next week's podcast that I'm going to do is going to be around the ways that you're being attacked so that you can build up defenses. And the title of that show is going to be how owning a business is like wrestling an octopus. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. But we're going to talk this week about SAMK, right? Your immediate reaction to an attack, which is coming at all times, right? Which is coming at all times. And so I came up with a couple of I went back and I looked at some first, because it's a military strategy, I went back and I looked at a couple of different battles where SAMK was used. And it took me back to, I believe it was 217, 216 BC, to the Battle of Cannae. It's Cannae, I believe, right? Which is incredibly close to Cannae, which is constant and never-ending improvement. But the Battle of Cannae, and I started to look at it, and what it was a Hannibal going up against the most powerful military in the world, the Roman military, and it was led by Lucius Paulus and Gaius Varro at the time, and Hannibal was getting into this battle, and the Romans had 80,000 troops. They had 80,000, and Hannibal had somewhere around 40. It was about half of the people available to fight this battle. Do you guys now stop just for a second? How many of you that own your own business feel like you are fighting an incredibly overpowering, there's in numbers, in strategy, in intellect, in connections, in marketing, in all of the things. How many of you feel like you are fighting a battle against an overwhelming odds, against an overwhelming attack? Just put in your responses. Just go ahead and say, that might be me, right? That might be me. I feel like I'm fighting a battle. Hi, my name is Jason Sisneros, founder and chairman of Anton J Global, a world-class business consulting company that has helped hundreds of clients and thousands of growth course students fix, scale, and successfully master their businesses. To put it simply, my team and I help people turn their businesses into machines that create cash. To better support startups and other mid-sized companies, my team and I developed a phenomenal and comprehensive digital growth course where I poured decades of business ownership and know-how into 20 hours of content. This course is not easy. It's not an easy pill, but demands real work from you to implement the blueprints that I've developed. We know that reaching financial freedom is never easy, but totally worth it. Go to growthcourse.com right now to learn more about the course and get started on your business journey today. And so what he did was he decided to use this strategy called SAMK, right? And in this battle, he had overwhelming odds that he had to go up against. And here's how it worked, right? It's one, by the way, if you research the Battle of Cannae, I think it's Cannae is actually the right pronunciation. It's one of the greatest tactical, it's regarded as one of the greatest tactical masterpieces in military history. And it's where Hannibal Barca led the Carthaginian army against a significantly larger Roman force. I just said 80,000 to 40,000. And he used a technique in a formation to absorb the Roman advance, which created local superiority at key points along the line, effectively suppressing the Roman center. And then he assessed, remember, we're here to talk about SAMK, to assess and exploit their weaknesses by enveloping with his cavalry and his infantry from the sides. And it led to a devastating defeat. A devastating defeat. One of the ones that, again, to think about that, that is a defeat that is regarded and studied since 216 BC because of employing this strategy called SAMK. Well, then I got to thinking, okay, it wins battles. I get it. It's applicable in the military. It's applicable, when we go undercover and we go do rescues. It's applicable for law enforcement in the strategies that they have. But how might that be applicable to business? And so I went out and I studied and I researched a little bit about how SAMK has been utilized in the business world. And I came up with the example of Netflix, right? Netflix, they suppressed traditional video rental competitors like Blockbuster. Those of you that remember going to Blockbuster and putting those, getting those VCR tapes and then DVDs and having to return them. And if you didn't return them, you ended up having a $7,000 fine. I don't know if you guys remember that, but I do. And it was pretty bad. Well, Netflix decided that they looked out there and they saw there's a growing broadband internet penetration and a consumer shift towards online content, right? They looked at that and so they suppressed Blockbuster by looking at a growing trend. And then they assessed that and they moved by pivoting. Write down, if you're taking notes, and remember, this is it. You'll get the show notes if you put your email address in at builttoexit.biz. But at the end of the day, put in your notes, pivot. The word pivot is incredibly important. And we'll get to that here in just a little bit about why. So they pivoted to streaming services ahead of the curve, right? They only could get ahead of the curve because they were paying attention. They were looking, they were strategic in what they were doing. They weren't just constantly fighting the battle, the attacks that were coming at them. They were fighting that battle, but they also stepped back and assessed. They took time to assess what they were doing. And then they moved by pivoting to streaming services ahead of the curve and killed by becoming the leading name in online streaming, drastically altering how people consume entertainment. How cool is that? How cool is that? So Netflix that started out, and I believe somebody offered to buy it really early on for a small amount of money, and they didn't sell. And they kept going because they could see down the future. We talk in this podcast constantly and consistently about having your end game in mind, right? Building towards a specific outcome. And you would be incredibly shocked, I think, about how many business owners that I run into that don't have a specific end game. They don't know where to put their excess money. They don't know if they make excess money, where it goes when you're in unthinking mode or untrained mode. Where it goes is towards buying a better car, buying a bigger house, going on better vacations. And so we become broke at a higher income level. And that is just because we don't understand the process. At least I didn't. I'll tell you, back in the day, the very first time that I started making money, that's what I did. I started buying a whole bunch of stuff to impress people that didn't like me and that I didn't really want to be around. It was the wrong outcome. I had simply just set my destination incorrectly, right? My business, I didn't realize, I didn't have the maturity at the time to understand that building my business was a way for me to free myself, to take care of my necessities first, and then to free myself with free cash flow. Free cash flow, as you know, if you've been watching the show, if you've been part of these Saturdays, you know that free cash flow is the kind of cash that you can take off the table that your business produces, that you can put towards anything. You can put towards whatever it is that you want. It doesn't affect, impact, slow down, change the trajectory of your business. And so your business, if you have an end game in mind, has a specific number attached to it. And that free cash flow is taken off the table and invested in your freedom. It's invested. And that's all part of the journey of becoming a chairman. Okay. So Amazon started way back when, and I believe that their net value today is $260 billion. I don't know if does anybody on here that's listening, right? Does anybody here not have Netflix? And if you don't, high five to you. But that's $260 billion value because they suppressed what Blockbuster was doing. And what was Blockbuster doing, right? They were doing what they've always done. Think about this in your own business. Think about this in your own life. Right? You have these dreams, you have these things in the quiet moments. You're like, man, I would really like to have a retirement. I'd really like to be able to pay for my kids' school. I'd really like to be able to go on a great vacation. I'd really like to do something nice for my husband or my wife. I'd really like to donate to the thing that I care about. I'd like to be able to spend more time with my family. I'd like to be all of those things that we put in our head, but we don't do anything different. We don't do anything different. The intelligent, right? We determined last week that we are playing a game of intellectual power. This game that we're playing, called business, is an intellectual sport, which means that yes, you need to use your time. Yes, you need to be fighting the battles. Yes, you've got to do the things to be able to make the ends meet at the end of the month. But the other time where you may be wasting it, where you might be scrolling Instagram, where you might be doing other things, is that an investment into your freedom? And if the answer is no, take some of that time and do actual thinking about your business. Right? I don't know. I know that after all of the businesses that I have helped through our consulting firm called Anton J, right? ANTONJAE.com for those of you that are interested. For all of those customers and all of those clients and all of the people, it is shocking to me how few of them, and I'd venture to say almost zero, have done proper thinking about where they want to go. One of the very first conversations I have to have is, what is your outcome, right? What are you building towards? What if you could take some of your time and work on your business? What if you could strategize? What if you could just take this SAMK education and apply it to your own business? What would happen? Well, for Hannibal, he beat the most powerful army in the world. For Netflix, they went from 0 to 260 billion. Right. And then I got to thinking, okay, that's business. What about individuals? Because that's who I'm speaking to when we come here, right? What I'm speaking to the individual. A lot of think about this word, write this word down, or at least think about it this week. The word customize. Everybody that's on here, everybody that listens to me, everybody that watches this or listens to it on replay, you all have a different end game. You have something different involved in your life. You have other interests. You have different family makeups. You have single, you have married, you have 1 kid, 2 kid, 3 kid, 4 kid. You have no kid, right? You have trips that you want to go on. You have different interests, things that inspired you to want to get involved in philanthropy or charity of some kind. And there's all these experiences in the world. There's a whole entire wide world for you to be able to jump on a jet and go experience, and to be able to eat meals in Africa, and to be able to go see the pyramids, and to be able to experience this great big world of ours before we pass, before we go to that next level, right? And so I started to think about, how can I bring this down into the individual, to me, to myself. This show prep that I do is constant evolution of my thinking. It's constant evolution of my ability to be able to teach. That's the phase of life that I'm in. I did it by building my own companies. I built a bunch of them and then I exited them, right? And I still have business interests, but my passion right now is teaching. It's making sure that we can keep the SMEs, right? Small and medium-sized enterprises. There's 33 million of us in the US and lots more around the world that have the ability to be able to keep ourselves free without the influence of a centralized state or unethical capitalism, having to work at a job as an indentured servant, right? Having to answer to a centralized government as to how much money you're worth. This show is a direct attack. It's my battle back against that push that we know is all around us all the time, and for you and for me to remain free economically, to have independent access to capital, for us to be able to do business with each other while constantly improving our machine called a business. That's what we do here. So I started thinking about individuals, and man, somebody that I really love and respect is J.K. Rowling. Right? J.K. Rowling. And it's interesting. We talked last week about a watch, and it was the Patek Philippe Grandmaster Chime. If anybody gets a chance to go back, if you haven't heard it, last week's show was amazing. It's on YouTube now, so you can see the video and all edited and pretty with the intros and the outros and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, we talked about that watch and the fact that there was 7 of them made over the course of 7 years, with 1,300 plus moving parts, right? And 100,000 hours put into it. And they sold, 6 of them sold before it was put out on the market, right? 6 of them at $31 or $31 million a piece sold before the watch was ever completed, and the other one quickly after. And it took 7 years. And so as I was researching this week, I was researching J.K. Rowling, and in 1990, she had the idea for Harry Potter, and she started to outline it. Remember that it's not about the stories. It's about how you can take what we talk about and apply it to your own life. She started to outline. In other words, she had life coming at her, and I'll get into what that was here in just a second. She had life coming at her, and she decided to take some time to think and prepare a different approach. And so it started in 1990 for her, where she just started to sketch out the idea. And 7 years later, she sold the first book for $2,500. What was going on, right? Let me just read an article in Business Insider. Let me just give you some of the stuff. They were interviewing her, and I believe the interview was from 2008 with the Sunday Times. And she said she was severely depressed and sought professional help. We're talking suicidal thoughts. We're not talking, I'm a little bit miserable. Mid-20s, life circumstances were very, very poor. And she used it she used her experience of depression to describe the Dementors in Harry Potter's books. It was entirely conscious and entirely from my own experience. Depression is the most unpleasant thing she's ever experienced. She attended therapy sessions to treat her depression at other times in life as well. So she felt like she was on a psychic treadmill, trying to keep up and compete in a world without a plan. And I got to thinking about that, and I thought about all of you, and I thought about all of us and me and my own journey. And I thought about, man, as the individual, forget business for just a second, but as an individual, life is coming at you at full speed all the time. It's coming at you at full speed all the time. And so in the midst of that, in the midst of her darkest days, she decided that she needed to do something different. The principle of what we talk about here is doing something different. It's doing something different. And that thinking, SAMK, suppress, assess, move, and kill, applied in your own life. We're going to get into how you do that specifically with your own business here in a second. But I just want you to think about that. What are some suppression methodologies for you as the individual? What about your own business? How can you assess? Do you ever get to the assess moment in your own career? How do you move? What do you pivot to? What do you pivot away from? And what do you pivot towards? And then once all that's built, what does killing it look like? Right? I just put the word "it" on the end of that, right? Because killing it in business means that you're making all the money you need. You've got your time. You're crushing goals. Your employees are thriving. Your customers are extraordinarily happy. How do we get to the kill part if we don't have the suppress, the assess, the move, and the kill? The power in your pivot. And J.K. Rowling, from those early days, and I'm not saying, look, I want to make something really crystal clear here, is that I'm not saying money solves all problems. But to build a business and to become worth X amount of dollars in the sport of ethical capitalism, you have to become something different. You have to become someone different. You have to improve your weaknesses and turn them into strengths. You have to take your strengths and make them superpowers. It's who you become along the way. And those of you that follow J.K. Rowling's story know where she is today, know the battles that she overcome, know that she's worth $1 billion with a B, $1 billion. J.K. Rowling went from being worth nothing, less than nothing, being in debt, being depressed, being suicidal, to being worth $1 billion. And if you read more of her story, which I'm not going to go into today, it's what she had to build. It's who she had to become. It was her forethought. It was small pieces, right? Your end game may change. It may get bigger as you grow towards it. But if you have no end game, if it isn't specified, if it isn't written down, if it doesn't have numbers attached to it, if it doesn't have a strategy of how you're going to create that excess capital, if you don't have that, what are you doing? You are living someone else's strategy. You are part of somebody else's winning strategy. And we need to set free. We need to all be set free to be able to create our own. And that takes interacting with the rest of the world. It takes strategy. It takes mental toughness. It takes all of those things that we talk about. But specifically with a small business, it's the greatest tool that God ever gave us, I believe, to be able to create capital. The parable of the talents in the Bible, if you want to go read about that, right? I want to be that good servant that multiplied my talents, that didn't bury it in the dirt. I want to be that good servant. I want to be that person that gets to the heaven's pearly gates. And I hear these words, well done. Well done. So let's talk about how we apply this. All right, let's talk about our end game. We've talked about our end game in almost every episode that I've ever done of this over the last couple of years, okay? Your end game should have some numbers attached to it. It should be yours, uniquely yours. But I wanted to start out with an inception thought that we haven't talked about before. An inception thought about your business, an inception thought about once you get that end game in mind, and you decide that business is your tool to be able to get you there, what is your inception thought? The outcome, the very specific end game is part of it. But there's two inception thoughts. As I went back through all of my clients, as I went back through my own career, as I went back through all of my thinking, I came down with two very powerful inception thoughts. 95% of companies fail. And here's why. Their inception thought is that they're going to imitate a real business. Are you a business owner that's looking to build your company into a machine that creates cash? I'm Jason Sisneros, chairman and founder of Anton J Global, a world-class business consulting company that has turned around, merged, or prepped for sale hundreds of companies just like yours. I'm best known as the architect when it comes to fixing and building companies across the globe. My experience comes from owning and exiting over 20 of my own companies successfully. It's that real-world experience that I've converted into the ultimate blueprint that has saved and grown my clients' businesses. If you're tired of getting bad advice, have bought all the books, all the coaching programs, and still aren't seeing the success that you were promised, it might be time to work with a team that has actual experience and a track record of success. Please scan the QR code or visit antonj.com to schedule your free 15-minute consultation to see if we can help you reach your outcomes. That's antonj.com, ANTONJAE.com. I'm going to say that again. The inception thought, the reason why a company fails long-term is because of leadership, foresight, planning, all of the things in mind, but it's the inception thought. I'm going to start a business, and instead of the word build, write that down or anchor it into your brain or come back or get my show notes by, at the end of this. But I'm going to imitate a business. I'm going to imitate a business. It's anathema to going, I'm going to have a house and you print out a big poster board of the house that you want to live in. I'm going to imitate a business. Do you know how I know when somebody is imitating that they actually have a business? It won't run without them. It won't run without them. There's no parts and pieces. Think about an imitation watch. We talked about the Patek Philippe being the Grandmaster Chime being a $31 million watch. Is there an imitation of that watch floating around the world somewhere? Hell yes. 100% there's an imitation Patek Philippe. But most people aren't even imitating a greatness. They're imitating a $20 Casio watch. Because to the rest of the world, and again, this is the psychology, I know it because I was it. I said, you know what, my business, it's everybody else thinks that I'm really busy. I tell everybody that calls me that I'm really busy. I tell everybody, either if you're a carnivore or if you're a vegan, right? You're telling everybody, you're telling everybody, I'm busy because 95% that fail look at busyness as a value proposition, and it's not. We're imitating a business. That's one inception thought. The second inception thought, which is the company, the 5%, and this is the goal of everybody here, to be a chairman, to be a chairperson, to be a chairwoman, you have to strive to be part of the 5%. The 5% that turn that company into something that has a long tail success, that is not necessary for you to be there for it to be successful, that can be built in such a way that somebody wants to buy it. And it's the word build. This is why I came up with the title for my book, Built to Exit. Okay. Built to exit.biz, built to exit, because builders are massively different than imitators. Massively different than imitators. What does a builder do? If you're actually building a company, then you're going to end up with blocks and siding and a roof and a floor and a porch and a pool and whatever it is that you have, for your end game that you want to build. You have to build it, not imitate. Yes, anybody can do the hustle, right? Anybody can find something and sell it and make some money, right? And be scraping along. And I said it last week, I'll say it this week again, that I heard it a couple weeks ago, which is, if you're not the lead horse, the view never changes. And that's what most people are settling for with their businesses. They're happy to imitate a business. But and I knew it when I was younger. I didn't really have a business. If I decided to if I got sick, if I decided to leave, if I decided not to show up, my businesses would fail. And that's exactly what happened to my first 3 companies that I went bankrupt in. I got to a place where it overwhelmed me, and I started to deal with the pressure by drinking and not showing up. And those 2 things, by the way, are not a combination. It's not a formula for success in business. And then it started to fall down around me because I was imitating being a business. I was just really effective at using my time from the time I woke up to the time I went to sleep at creating non-repetitive revenue. Non-repetitive revenue with non-repetitive strategies and systems. It was just me there every single day, which is fine. Look, for some of us, and for me at the time, it was much better than me working a job. It was much better than me working for a job because I'm a high school dropout with a criminal record from when I was a kid, from the family that I was raised in that was a criminal family, with a father that went to prison for attempted murder of me and my mom when I was 17. I don't shame anybody on this show, because you get where you get until you hear these words, until you hear, like I did in my life, the mentors that reached into my life and taught me a new way to think about things. And not only that, but a new way to do things, to be able to grab strategies and tactics and behaviors that led to a different outcome. Thank God for my mentors. Thank God for the people that taught me how to think differently so that I could apply those lessons in my own life, to be able to build the life that I wouldn't trade with anyone. From start to finish, I wouldn't trade my life with anyone. And that's way more. We could talk about the money, but you don't hear that from me. You don't hear that. You don't see me throwing houses and all the stuff on social media. You don't see that from me, because it's not about me. It's about you. Because if you don't succeed, I am pointless. If you don't take these strategies and apply them in your own life, I am pointless. The time that I spend here on Saturdays, all the work that I put into teaching, the time, effort, energy, if you are not changing your life, if you are not being able to take these strategies and apply them to your own life, then there is no point for me. And that's how I feel about the guru industry. They sell you stuff that feels good, smells good, looks good, but is fake. You don't learn about SAMK. You don't learn about how to apply. Cross-pollination is one of the most powerful concepts for your business. Cross-pollination, take what works from other businesses and other strategies and other things in history, and to be able to apply them to your business because they're time-tested principles. I shudder to think if I would have thought to myself, I know it all, instead of building a valuable man for my family, somebody that I could look in the mirror and respect, and to become a good enough man to be able to deserve the wife that I have, to be a good enough man to deserve the friends that I have, to be able to give back and to be able to go into the darkest places and bring kids out of the worst part of their life, to be able to help women of domestic violence, to be able to feed people through Feed a Billion, to be able to do the things that I do. I shudder to think if I would have sat back and thought, I know. And then I would have had the inception thought to imitate a good man. I shudder to think, it almost brings tears to my eyes to think of the life that I may have lived if somebody didn't love me enough to tell me the truth. If somebody didn't love me enough to slap me in the face when I was arrogant, when I was being uneducated, when I was making bad decisions, to say, Jason, stop that shit. There's only one end for you. It's prison or death. And I can tell you by the entire list of my friends, family members that have met that fate, they were right. And instead, I live a life that if I took my last breath right now, I'm proud of it. Are these business principles? Absolutely. It comes back to your inception thought. Are you going to settle for being an imitator, for taking the scraps off the table of what life gives you? Are you willing to take the scraps? Are you willing to look your kids, your husband, your wife, the people around you and just say, you know what? I am an imitation. I am a cheap copy. Or do you want to build something? Do you want to build a business? That's what this podcast is centered around. But I know I have a lot of people who listen to this and follow me that don't own businesses. The same principle applies. Are you imitating or are you building? And if you're building, then you're going to end up with an asset. You're going to end up with a piece of machinery. Think about the watch, right? I fully look at business like a machine. It's a machine that creates cash. That's why you build it. You do it by falling in love with somebody's outcome, somebody else's outcome. You do it by falling in love with the outcome of your employees. You do it, all of the strategies and all of the tactics that are in my 28 hours of training at growthcourse.com/freedom. For all of you, there's a lot of graduates that are in here. There's a lot of people that have done deep dives with my company, Anton J, which Joe Callow, who's here, is the president of. There's a lot of people that have experienced what I'm talking about. And that is simply setting themselves free with a tool called business. I had to shift their inception thoughts in a lot of instances to say, no, you're not an imitation. Stop imitating other construction companies. Stop imitating other plumbing companies. Stop imitating other coaching companies. Stop imitating and build yourself a business that does not require you to be there to produce the predictable outcome for your customers and for your employees. So how do we apply SAMK to your own business? And I'm going to give you some tools. I'm going to give you some ways to think about this for your own business. Right? If your business, if again, I said it, so you're going to commit, right? We're changing your inception thought. If it wasn't this before, it now is that today, is that you are going to be a builder. And in order to be a builder, you have to have tangible assets. You have to have tangible tools. You have to look at the Patek Philippe and go, that had 1,366 pieces to it. And it was carefully built by horological geniuses. In other words, people that knew what they were doing and trained the people that were underneath of them and put systems in place to have a predictable outcome called $31 million watch. The same thing that Hannibal had to do to win a battle with 40,000 people against 80,000. The same thing that Netflix had to do when it was battling a Blockbuster with this brand new idea. The same thing that J.K. Rowling had to do when she was broke and took 7 years to build out Harry Potter to become a billion-dollar brand. It's the same approach. So in business, once you understand that you're constantly under attack, the very first thing, and I'm just going to tell you what we do, right? If you have a company and you want our help, It's very easy to reach out to us, jasonsisneros.com, and then go through to Anton J, right? If you're one of those companies that you need somebody that has been through this, that knows how to suppress oncoming fire, right? Those of you that maybe not have the capital yet to invest in your business, then we've got growthcourse.com/freedom that you can go to. You can just become part of the Built to Exit, the Chairman Project podcast, where there's free information every single week by putting your email address in at builttoexit.biz. Any way you want to set, or find somebody else that knows what they're talking about and follow them and do what they do. But let me tell you what we do when we go in. The very first thing that we have to do is we have to say, okay, we're shifting you from imitating to building. That means that we're going to have to end up with some tangible thought processes, some procedures, some SOPs, the things in business that you can point to with a new employee coming in, the things that you can point to when somebody comes to buy your business and you aren't necessary. You will never sell your business if you are necessary in the process. You will never exit your business and have your freedom and of time to yourself if you do not. If you do not build assets, if you do not build the machine correctly. And so what we do is we say, okay, cool. We get a phone call. They're either building, they're merging, they're in trouble, whatever their company is in. And we say, okay, let's look at this. We're going to build a company now. Step number one. That applies to suppression. We go, okay, you've got to start suppression in the military is just to get some lead down range to get people to stop firing at you, to take the pressure of imminent death off of the plate. Okay. And it's the same thing in your business. And there's a couple of things. I'm not going to go into all the strategic ways that we do this, but there's a few things that you could think about. One is, if you have sales, you've got to increase your cash flow. The imminent danger that people feel with their business is the fact that they don't have enough money to pay the bills. There's more month than there is money. And so one of the things that you have to do to suppress that oncoming fire is to go make more sales. One way or the other, just go make more sales. Put more energy and effort into it. Retarget some of your time that you're wasting into actually producing revenue-producing activities. Make sure that you have a 13-week rolling cash flow built. I don't care if you're a solopreneur. This is not something that you can shirk the responsibility of. There is no such thing as a business, a Fortune 500 business, or a business that has survived beyond 10 years that doesn't have a 13-week rolling cash flow. If you need help, reach out to us and we'll help you. We know how to do that. Fire the toxic employee that needs to be fired. And you know who they are. Get rid of them. And if that's you, then how you fire yourself in your own business is by getting rid of the behaviors that you know are causing you problems in your own business. There's three tactics, right? There's three tactics. And when we come in, we go, okay, let's throw this to solve the cash flow problem or whatever it may be, right? We do our own assessment. It's like a 30-page questionnaire that then pops out. This is where we are. And so then we start throwing lead down range by firing back at those issues. Then the second thing you do, that creates a little distance, right? It creates a little bit of distance between you and the oncoming fire. And that little bit of distance is not for you to sit back and take a deep breath and think that you've reached some pinnacle. It's for you to step back and assess, for you to look to start the process of architecting your end game with your machine. And three areas that you want to focus in assessment is use of time of you and everybody on your team. What tools do you have in place to be able to execute? And the proper sequencing of how you're going to do step 3, which is move or pivot. In business world, it is the beginning of the assembly of your critical 18 optimized assets, tools, machine parts, cogs, whatever one anchors in with you, to be able to optimize your cash flow. And then step 4 for us is build to exit. Step 4 is build to exit. That's where you go, okay, cool. There's the oncoming fires handled. We've taken some time to strategically look at what assets we do have, what we don't have, and to deploy them so that we can continue to get better. And then to get into the assembly of the critical 18 that are necessary. Those of you that have been through the growth course, you understand what I'm talking about. And I'll do a show on this a little bit later. Each one of those 18 tools has to be something you can put your hands on. It has to be the technology, the people, the strategies, the SOPs, the behaviors, all of the things anchored in so that that document or that tool can be used without your presence in the execution of creating revenue for your business. That's a critical 18. And that 4th step is build the exit. That is where you say, okay, now we have all of that handled. We've optimized our cash flow. Now I have to continue. I have to finish the build, right? After step number 3, you basically have a roof on and you have the studs up and you have a foundation in place. Now it's time for you to go in and make it something that is sellable or something that you can leave and know that it's going to be standing and designed exactly the way that you want to and come back to, and it's going to be the same. This is where you improve the quality of the parts of your machine to a point. There's that you go from 18 to 40 machine parts with a bunch of subsets in it. And those of you are going, oh my gosh, that's a lot of parts and pieces. 1,366 pieces in a Patek Philippe Grandmaster chime that was worth $31 million. 7 years to build it. 7 years for J.K. Rowling to fine tune the Harry Potter stories to be sold for $2,500 the first time, or lira or pounds or whatever money that it was in, but it was only $2,500 for that first book. But when you reach stage 4, you're being built to exit. Exit, it only means your time back. You can still participate if you want to, but it's not required, or you are putting it out for sale. And the reason why, when you look at the statistics of only 7% of companies that ever get put on the market ever sell, 7%, that is a pathetic sale number, is because those 93% did not have assets, tools, machine parts that was able to be handed to somebody who was buying it, because they're only buying it for potential future cash flow. And if you aren't if you have to be present, then they can't buy the business. There's nothing to buy, because I can't buy a human being that refused to build assets, that refused to machine parts, that I can come in and actually buy that machine that already works and improve it or do whatever I want to with it. But if somebody's going to buy it, they're going to put down $1 million for the hope of making 2 million, for the hope of making 3 million. They're buying the future. You're selling the past. And if your past does not include having built a machine that does not require you, then you were an imitator this entire time, and you're going to find out at the closing table when you think you're going to get a check for $1 million, you're going to get nothing. Or they're going to require you there to be there for 6 years and carry part of the note. You can avoid all of that. That 4th stage, right, which is called kill, we call it killing it in business, is for you to build the exit, to improve the quality of parts, to finish the build out of the 40 and all of its subsets, and to complete the build to not need you, that has perpetual motion, incremental improvement. It's been polished. It's a completed asset to say, hey, you want to buy this? And if not, it's just sitting there producing predictable cash flow for you. Now, how do you do that? Right? How do you do that? You have to find somebody who's done it before that can lay out how you build those assets. If there's one thing that I figured out to do, I did it for myself and my businesses, and then was able to exit. I still build businesses. My wife and I are in business together. I've got other companies. I've got other cash flowing businesses, and we teach companies that hire us at Anton J, people that go through the growth course, people that are coming here on Saturday to listen to this, people that go to built-to-exit.biz and just become part of the process, become part of this conversation. This costs you nothing but your time, and I'm very appreciative of it. So in conclusion, in conclusion, those 4 parts: suppress, assess, move, and kill. They equate in your business to deploying strategic flares. If you've ever watched any of the Top Gun movies, you know, and they're being chased in those airplanes and somebody's like, they're locked on, they're locked on, they're locked on. And what do? They push a button and they put out protective flares. And that missile just misses them by a hair. It just misses them by a hair. You're like, oh my God, Tom Cruise is gonna die. And then he pushes that button and those strategic flares go out and it blows up a second before destroying the airplane. That's the first step you've got to take. You've got to put out strategic flares by making more sales, by getting your 13-week rolling cash flow in place, by getting rid of toxic employees. You know, there's a whole list of these things that we go through in the growth course, or if you hire us for deep dives, right? But at the end of the day, that is deploying strategic flares to get the pressure off of you, to give you a moment more to live so that you can go to step 2, which is assess. What do they do in the movies, right? When a plane is being chased, put out the flares, boom, that thing just barely missed them. And what do? They're like, okay, I'm going to use these mountains and I'm going to go dip and dive and I'm going to go do all this stuff. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to do a flip in the air and I'm going to come around behind my enemy. It's because they had the time to be alive long enough to assess their situation of time, tools, and sequencing to be able to get to step number 3, which is to be able to pivot in the assembly of your critical 18 strategies. And then you had enough time, your time, right? You're starting to understand, if you've listened to me for more than one day, that time is the real asset that we have. And we have to invest it so we get more of it. Or we're spending it, and even worse, it's being debited away from us because we're serving somebody else, and our health is being depleted. Our relationships are being depleted. Our joy is being depleted. Our peace is being depleted. All of those things are being depleted unless you are a builder. Okay? Unless you become part of the chairman the chairman circle. Unless you graduate to that level. So you get those things in line. You do the assembly of the critical 18, and then you start into building to exit. You improve the quality of the parts in order for it not to need you, so that you have a saleable asset or an exitable asset. That's it. So I want to say thank you all. Take those. Again, what we say here is for you to take what we talk about and for you to implement and to look at and to strategize your own SAMK strategy in your own business over the next 7 days and come back and learn some more. And if something clicks up or you have a question about how to apply it, we have the live segment on Saturday from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Twitter, on x.com at the J Sisneros. And the show that we're doing or did last week is always pinned to the top, so it's easy to find. And then a few days later, it's been it's been edited and is up on YouTube at the Chairman Project podcast. Lots of information, lots of ability. Your context has to change. Your cup has to get bigger so that you can think about, I'm building a $2 million business at 50% profitability, and half of that, half $500,000 is going to go in the bank, and I'm going to eventually invest that so that I'm making just as much money from my passive investments, and I've got a business that's built that is producing predictive cash flow. This is the game that you're playing. Business is an intellectual sport. Are you playing smart? So I'll say again, growthcourse.com/freedom. Anton, ANTONJAE.com. Set an appointment, 15 minutes. You'll be able to talk to Joe or somebody else on the team about your particular business or company. And if you want to just remain in the free pile and use these things so that you can make enough money to hire somebody, hire us or hire somebody else, just go to builttoexit.biz and put in your email address, and you'll get my show notes. You'll get the infographic. And eventually we'll be able to get you the podcast when it's all done, so that you can always refer back to this information. I love you all. You know, those of you that have been with me for a long time know that I do this out of passion. I am passionate about you, the business owner. I am passionate about you, the individual, being able to have access to and build a tool called a business for you and your family. Because in that process, you keep me free. In that process, you keep your kids free. In that process, you hold back the wolves that want to control everything. Centralized governments, massive multinational, unethical capitalist businesses. We are 60% of the GDP in the United States. We need to start acting like it, and we need to start making that 61%, 62%, 63%. How you do it is by employing these strategies. How you do this is by deciding today that I am no longer an imitator. I am going to actually physically build something. What am I going to build it to do? I'm going to build it to exit. Not that I have to leave my business, but I can. Not because I want to sell my business, but I will be able to. Those are the reasons. I'm passionately with you every single week. I love you dearly. We're going to switch over into the live Q&A. Those of you that are watching the podcast on replay, you won't get this part of it. You have to be there on Saturday to be able to be part of this conversation, to be able to hear the kind of things. Bring your questions. It's the right place. It's like a radio show. You get to interact with me and the other people that I have with me. But go forth and crush. It's important that you're successful. It's important that you're not an imitator, that you become somebody that's actually building something. It's important, more important than you even know. Get your necessities handled first, and then build yourself an asset that appreciates over time. I'm Jason Sisneros. Thank you so much for being with us every single week. Make sure you share the podcast. Make sure that you're telling people, bring people with you on Saturday, but most importantly, bring you. I love you all very much, and we'll see you next week on the Chairman Project Podcast with Jason Sisneros.